Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joanna Vicente, and I'm the Executive Director and Co-Head of TIFF, and I'm very excited to welcome you to today's screening of Lakewood. As you, yes. As you join us here today, we encourage you to reflect on the land that you are on and its history. We are located on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee. These territories within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon, One Pond Belt Covenant, and is home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We are grateful to work on this land. A sincere thank you to our lead sponsor, Bell, and our major sponsors, RBC, L'Oréal Paris, and Visa. Thank you to our major supporters, the Government of Ontario, Telefilm Canada, and the City of Toronto for their continued support. Thank you to our members and donors. You help us transform the way people see the world through film. For more details, visit tiff.net/support. We would like to thank Mr. Smith Entertainment and United Talent Agency for providing us with this film. I'm thrilled to be sharing Lakewood with you this afternoon. Director Phillip Noyce's latest feature is both exhilarating and poignant. Lakewood plunges the viewer into a desperate scenario unfolding in real time. Naomi Watts is captivating in her fusion of impromptu heroism and maternal devotion. It's really a tour de force performance, and ultimately the film functions as a tribute to the power of a community working together in the face of calamity. We are so happy to have the film director here, so please join me in welcoming to the stage Phillip Noyce.
Hi. I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to be here. Actually, this morning at 8 o'clock, I sat where you're sitting and for the first time saw a little bit of my film on a big screen. What a thrill. After 8 months of editing it in my little tiny office on my tiny computer. I'd like to introduce some of my collaborators, particularly my producers, starting with Alex Lalonde. And Zach Schiller, Andrew Corkin, and last but not least, the screenwriter for the film and producer, Chris Sparling. And a surprise, one of our actors who has a key role in the film, Colton Globo. So it was just over a year ago that I first read Chris's wonderful script, and it touched me in ways that surprised me. As a father of a 13-year-old boy, I felt the fears that I feel every day when I take him to school, when I read Chris's script. And that's what I think joined us all, that fear, and sharing it with the millions of other parents around the world who have that same fear every day. There's someone who's not here, but sends her apologies. That's Naomi Watts. And I'd also like to acknowledge Phil Eisler, the brilliant composer of the score. I've stood here before and I've sat there before watching my movies, and I know how appreciative TIFF audiences are. But today, I'd like you to hold your appreciation at the end of the film when you see my name. I know you'll want to clap, but don't, because the movie's not over. And just wait until you see the end credits actually roll up with the actors' names. Then you can give us your TIFF applause. Enjoy Lakewood. Thank you. Oh, one other thing. Sorry, I forgot. There are so many people here from the crew, most of whom I haven't even met because I've spent my time working with them in isolation. I wonder if those people could stand for a moment and take a bow, wherever you are. So we're going to be back, all of us, minus Colton, for the Q&A afterwards. We'll be backstage, I think, and we'll be beamed into you. Anyway, we'll see you then. Thank you and enjoy the film.
Thank you, everyone. I'd like to welcome Phillip Noyce, Chris Sparling, Zach Schiller, Andrew Corkin, and Alex Lalonde. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for such a powerful film. Thank you. I'll begin. I know this film brings up so many things. I found it so incredibly moving. I know that there's a lot of Canadian crew in the film. Could you start by just talking about how the project was brought together and where you shot and all that?
Well, it was brought together by this man, the writer, and this man who got together, and they went to Naomi Watts, which was the gift that I was given, someone that I'd wanted to work with for 40 years. I finally got my wish. So these two put it together. They took it to Zach and to Dylan Sellers, the producer that's not here because he's working on another film at the moment. And then they took it to Alex Lalonde, who organized the financing here in Canada and obtained the shooting crew for us, suggested the most wonderful crew, some of whom are here, including my assistant who nursed me through the whole process, Miranda. I hope she's here somewhere. And then Alex put us together with the most wonderful post-production crew, none of which I've met in person. I've never met the editor. I haven't met the sound designer, the colorist, the mixer. None of them. I hope that they'll come and see me after the show so I can actually put a face, a real face, to the one that I've been staring at for months on my computer. So it's a real, and the pleasure of making the film in Canada was twofold. One, Canadians are like polite Australians. But like Australians, they just have this can-do attitude. There was nothing they couldn't do. Two, Naomi Watts, as I said, I've just longed to work with her since she was a teenager and we were together in Sydney. And three was the script, you know. As I said it beforehand, we were all bound by this feeling that we wanted to share something with an audience and with other parents. And like Colton so eloquently states at the end there, as so many survivors of school shootings have, you know, their therapy has become their advocacy against guns, for gun control. Anyway.
Yeah, it's a beautifully crafted script, and you really struck such an incredible balance. Can you talk about a bit about the screenwriting process? And I just found it, you know, very it's a very kinetic film, but at the same time, it also speaks to like a very current problem in a way that also feels like has some hope, the activism. And if you can talk a bit about that.
Yeah. Very quickly, though, this is actually the first time Phil and I have met in person. quick little funny story. So when I showed up today with Andrew, we went into the green room in the back, and we were wearing our masks, and Phil was already there. And so Andrew was talking. I'm like, look, we're here. We're finally talking. And I was talking to him for about 5 minutes, and I walked away to grab a drink, and he looks at Andrew and goes, who the hell is that? So, sorry. No,
He did have a mask on.
yeah, I did, right. So, I mean, this, for me, was, I have young kids, school-age kids, and it's just I'll just be frank, it's a fucked up thing that as a parent, this even crosses your mind every day. That this should not be something you think about when you saw Emily when she was getting on the bus. Like, when I was writing the script, that was it exactly. The bus, I was lucky enough, the bus stopped in front of our house. You shouldn't be thinking those sort of things. So, I kind of took that feeling, and, I think with Lakewood, there's a reason why it's called Lakewood, by the way, and this is, I think, what's most important to get across, is it is about how these incidents affect the entire community, right? And that it just sends these ripples across, and it tears the fabric apart of the community. And so my hope, my effort was to try to tell a story that properly captured that.
Yeah, and Naomi does such an incredible job. Like, the camera's on her the whole time. I know you shot this during COVID, right? Was part of the reason that you chose to just shoot at that time was it always so contained, the script, with a single actor?
Yeah. That was how Chris conceived it. Yeah. Okay. So, and then Zach and Dylan said, well, now we're in lockdown. We can't shoot. The whole industry is in chaos. Let's see if we can shoot this film. It looks like an ideal candidate. And it was not only an ideal candidate to shoot in the lockdown, but it was the perfect antidote for all of us at that time.
And speaking of like the movement of the film, when we do have a pre-recorded Q&A as well on YouTube, and one of the things that I would love for you to underline for the audience is some of those challenges of shooting a film with Naomi running the whole time.
Oh my goodness. The first 2 hours of every day was taken up with organizing all the cars that had to go in front of her. First of all, the director car, the camera car, the director's car, because I've got to watch the screen, the sound recorder's car, the actors who are playing with her, that car, the makeup car, and there were about 3 more cars that were running in front of her, and they had to all be lined up, the people put in them. And, Naomi was incredible because some days she did 11 minutes, 10 pages of script, 11 minutes takes running through a sequence of phone calls. It took enormous stamina on her behalf. And the reason I thought that she was so perfect for the film, just to jump back a bit, is because when I talked to her for the first time, she not only talked about the fears that parents have when they drop their kids off, but she also talked about the fear that every parent of teenagers has, and that is that you don't know your child. And I'm just going through that now with my 13-year-old boy, who I'm wondering, is that me? Is that my wife? Or is he another person? And is that a person? Wow, I don't know that person. And that's a fear that we all have.
Yeah. And that's beautifully woven into the script. When Naomi is unsure, when there's a moment, she's like, is my son the shooter? And then realizing, and then that compassion, that love of a mother. And you strike that really well. It's told in like such a almost like economical way. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, that was, it's a lot to ask of an audience to say, watch someone talk on a phone for 90 minutes. And so, you do your best to kind of keep you guessing a bit and bring in some misdirects and everything else. And it was a tricky balance to say, well, we don't want to if we want to try to make the audience at some point feel, okay, Noah might be responsible for this, we didn't want to lean too far. We had many of these conversations, like how far do we want to go at the outset to kind of create that feeling and push the audience in that direction without going too far. So there was a lot of that. I mean, I think, dare I say, the twists and turns that are in there. I mean, it's just, it's important to build a mystery in these sort of movies. I've done another movie with a person on the phone. It seems like every 10 years I show up here and with a new movie with someone on a phone. But
The last one was in a coffin.
right. But yeah, no, it's necessary for any narrative, but it's especially necessary for one like this.
But, I mentioned this, but I think if the film is effective, it's for two reasons. One, the actress, and two, the composer. I mean, Phil Eisler just pulls one out of a hat there. He never repeats himself. He's always, and he uses the theme sparingly. So he only pulls at our heartstrings every so often, but he's always keeping us on the edge of our seats. And I've seen the film without a score, I've seen it with a temp score, but the first time I saw it with his score, it was like seeing another movie.
Yeah, oh, that's incredible. It is amazing because I remember watching it for the first time on a small screen, and I was bawling by the end. I went through so many emotions throughout the film, and it's an incredible feat thank you, all of you.
Is anyone going to ask questions?
We don't usually do questions in this big.
Oh.
Yeah, but if.
Sorry, you can't ask questions. Unless you shout.
But I did want to ask the producers, this is a really brave film to do. Can you just tell us a little bit about the stories, why you wanted to do this film, and if you can talk a little bit about that, all of you.
Yeah, I can speak personally then, and I'll turn it over to Andrew and Alex. But for me, and it really brought it home watching it in the room with you all today. We have not experienced this film with anybody other than the 5 or 6 of us. And, this is a tough weekend for me because I lost my best friend in September 11th. And I spent a good portion of the day yesterday talking to his father. And it's always about, for me, this film was about the experience and the empathy of watching somebody live through what is the worst situation that any human being can be put in who has children. And, I just want to say his name, Tyler Euglin, and he's one of the reasons that I was drawn to this script and that, we greenlit the movie. And, I just hope that, the takeaway for everybody in the room is just to be empathetic and kind towards other people and to try and put yourselves in other people's shoes a little more often. And, and all the community that comes around her, all these people that she doesn't know on the phone that help her get through this, to me is sort of the heart of the film.
When Chris and I first started playing with the idea of sort of this contained story, I'm not sure we necessarily knew how important a story we were setting out to tell. And as the pages came together, Chris is one of the most incredible writers that I've luckily had the pleasure of working with now twice. We just knew we had something that we were going to have a tough time trying to make, and we needed to partner with people that really believed in the message of this story. And we found that with Alex and Phil and Zach and Dylan, and of course, Naomi. That this is a story that we hope people go, and we know it's not an easy watch necessarily, but the message we want to ring out is very strong, which is one of empathy and compassion. And we were very fortunate to work with an organization called Every Town for Gun Safety as we were putting together the script to make sure that we are approaching these issues with authenticity and love. And so we hope that showed in the screening.
I think, they've said it all, really. When I read the script, and I felt the same way about it, of course, being a mom to 2 kids. And, I think as Canadians also, we're not untouched by gun violence, but we do often watch our neighbors to the south in horror. And, it was just, as soon as I read it, it was such a great read. It was such an emotional read, and there wasn't a second that I knew that we had to tell this story.
Yeah. One of the things I absolutely love about the story is like the heroism of a mom. right? This mother being capable of these heroics, using, compassion and just finding, calling everybody, like a mom would totally do this, like call everybody, do you see the car? Was that something that you wanted to get across as well, the heroism of just like everyday people? Because I felt at the end when Noah was speaking, also like, teenagers can also be heroes.
Yeah, I would say I'm glad that came across that way, because in no way did I want to make this character seem anything more than the rest of us. She's out for a run. This is just, we don't get warnings. We may have signs in our lives that say, maybe something is coming, but generally speaking, we don't know when tragedy is coming. We don't know when it's just around the bend. And then it just happens. And then, I think it's, especially as parents, I think it's just in us. We would do anything for our kids. So it was important for me for her to come across, for Naomi, to seem like as you, me, any of you here, because I think the movie really wouldn't have worked if, for example, if it were Nick Cage. Or maybe it would have been awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, but she's like an everyday superhero, like a super mom.
Yeah, but this is, again, you're in that situation, you are willing to do anything and everything to protect your child. So everyone becomes, if you want to say, quote unquote, superhero, because anyone that's willing to, she'd be willing to lay down her life if it meant saving her child. So yeah.
Thank you. Well, it's such a powerful film. I'm so happy that we're able to show this audience first, the TIFF audiences.
I've also got a secret.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
I got a secret. Maybe you're guessing, but Detective Paulson is played by Liev Schreiber, who, of course, yeah. So if you detected a little frisson, maybe there was.
Are there any other little story? Well, any stories that you want to share with us before we?
Oh, there's a lot of stories. Also, Jason Clarke, who was in Rabbit Proof Fence, was screened here way back when. He plays her co-worker. Yeah. And there's a few others in there that you'll have to find when you go to the credits.
Would anybody like to share any before we?
Thank you for seeing it on the big screen.
I never imagined that we would still be wearing masks. When we shot that, it was very early it was sort of, a few months into COVID, and Ontario had just opened up, and we went up to the north, and of course the north, there were no cases up there, and we were able to, we had to pivot, and the rules and the guidelines for COVID and the way that we sort of needed to shoot it. And Phil's right, the number of cars, because nobody could share cars, and there were two people, and sitting.
Well, also we'd end up miles away at the end of the take, literally 2 miles away.
That's right, but thankfully we were outdoors the entire time. Thankfully, or most of the time. Thankfully, the weather was great, but I never would have imagined that a year later we're still wearing masks and we're still in this. So,
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
But we are all privileged to have watched this film for the first time ourselves with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if he's here, thanks Doug Brisebois, who found all those wonderful locations. Where are you, Doug? Where are you?
Doug's not here.
He's not here. Oh,
Doug's
okay.
not here. We'll see him in
Well,
February,
we'll
but
convey that to
we
him.
do have lots of crew. Most of them are up there. And thank you guys so much.
Oh, and
And
Colton.
Gina Vanny.
Colton is up there. Take a bow.
Colton,
now that everyone's
Gina.
seen your performance. Colton Gobo.
Stephanie Gorin.
And, I know, I've got a little secret, yes. I'll tell you what, all those online statements that Colton makes? Guess who photographed them? Guess who directed it himself? Okay? He did it all himself. He was the cameraman. He was his own director. He'd send them to me. I'd send back comments, but he was all alone in his apartment here in Toronto shooting all that stuff. Thank you, mate.
Well, thank you, Philip. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Zach, Andrew, Alex. So lovely to have you here. Thank you for sharing this really powerful film with us. I think it's just so important that this film premieres, gets seen, and spread the word out. Send everyone to see Lakewood. Thank you.
Thank you.